Let's talk about the human immune system. Like any of the systems in the human body or an animal body, it gets stronger from facing a certain amount of challenge. Your immune system could be compared to the military of your body. Okay, so any country that wants to live past tomorrow has to have a military, because if you don't, you will be immediately invaded and taken over. You're done for. It's no different with the immune system in your body. Okay, now, as I often say, common sense is not common, but let's apply some here. We live in an era when, for thousands, maybe millions of years, the human body had to intelligently adapt and defend itself from any kind of infection or sickness, or you didn't live. The immune system has been strengthening itself this way for a long time. Survival of the fittest, the natural laws of nature apply. And again, just because humans have invented all these cities and artificial environments to live in and forgotten their connection to nature, it doesn't mean you can get away with undermining the intelligence of what's built into nature. So, a little while back in history, people came up with antibiotics. Penicillin was the first one. They found out a way to produce it and have a supply to save lives, because when you are really, really sick and you're going to die otherwise, an antibiotic will save your life from an infection. However, I must again make the point that human technology is beyond human wisdom and maturity. That puts us in a very dangerous place on this planet. If we were an intelligent, reasonable species, we would have only ever used antibiotics to save lives in an emergency, if the person was going to die otherwise. However, what's happened is people have gotten into the pattern of being unwilling to beat anything naturally. I'm not going to blame the doctors and say that they just prescribe antibiotics and they don't care, because it's equally their fault and the public's. The education that your doctor gets is basically to appease you. When you go to your doctor and you complain, I got a sniffle and I want to fix it now because I don't have time to be sick. And believe me, I understand it's not convenient. It's not easy going through beating a sickness naturally. We all want to be doing other things, and sometimes it's just days of sitting there feeling like, I can't wait for this to be over, so life feels like it's worth living again. But the problem is, it's incredibly foolish, an incredibly blind thing to be doing, because every time you take an antibiotic, it wipes out all the bacteria, strains in your intestinal tract. And your intestinal tract contains 80% of your immune system. So that's gone now. It's the equivalent of dropping napalm on your own soldiers and the enemy soldiers just to kill everybody. War's over and you won, right? They're all dead. The problem is, after wiping everything out like that, certain strains of yeast and bacteria will grow out of control inside your intestines after that and take over and damage your body. The word candida, pretty popular term these days, and it's a consequence of what I'm talking about. So now, any of us who have ever taken antibiotics, and who hasn't, right? I mean, most of us didn't have a choice when we were babies or children. We didn't make these decisions for ourselves. So we've all had antibiotics for the most part if you're living in so-called civilized society. Now, the thing to do is not to give up and think it's all over because you don't have an immune system right now, which you basically don't. You're a country with no military, waiting to be taken over and killed by the next common cold or flu that comes through. The wise thing to do is immediately after a course of antibiotics, and I mean immediately, start taking very high quality probiotics to rebuild healthy strains of bacteria in your gut. If you do this, you can recover. You can begin rebuilding your immune system. And if you're hearing what I'm saying, the next time you catch something, try to beat it naturally. Maybe you won't be ready yet. Maybe your immune system will still be too weak. And I'm not telling somebody to stay home and struggle with a flu till you die from it. If you don't have what it takes to beat it, get your antibiotic. You're not ready yet. This is the problem, guys. You're walking around without an immune system. This is a problem for so many reasons. Imagine, if I was a terrorist and I had less numbers and less weapons to fight a larger country, I think what I'd do is I would just hijack and destroy the supply of antibiotics. And a lot of you would die from the next cold or flu you got. As sad as that sounds, or as mean as that might sound, it's just reality, okay? So, having a body with no immune system, or a totally inadequate immune system, is a absolutely insane place to be. Now, my family, we do things different. We don't take the antibiotics. We beat everything naturally. And no matter what they name the next flu strain, we've had bird flu, we've had pig flu, we've had everything else that comes through for the most part, because we don't go around trying to avoid the germs. When we catch something, we beat it naturally, and that's training day for our immune system. The last bad flu that came through, both of my sons beat it in one day, okay? It took me and my wife a week, but we beat it naturally too. But our children, because we haven't given them the antibiotics and we've been building up their immune system and we've been letting them beat things naturally, these scary viruses that everyone's so terrified of, it's an illusion. They're the same thing they were, when I was a kid, before we started naming everything scarier names to freak you out so you'll go buy a vaccination, and that's a whole nother topic. Right now we're just talking about antibiotics and beating sickness naturally. So like I say, things that people around us couldn't even beat, some of them almost died even with the antibiotics. When we caught it, it's almost like nothing, especially for my kids. They didn't have years of foolishness in antibiotics and vaccines like I've had. I'm rebuilding from a lifetime of other people's decisions being put into my body, okay? Society, the way it is. And so are you guys. You're in that boat. You never, most of you never thought about this for yourself. And you don't realize that, again, one of the most important pieces of your vitality is now missing because we're disconnected from the natural elements and our natural vitality, because people think nature is an inconvenient thing that gets you dirty, and they don't recognize that's where all your vitality comes from. And the further you separate yourself from it, the further you're separating yourself from your potential vitality for life. Okay, let me think if there's anything else I need to add to this. Oh yeah, here's something a lot of you probably don't know because you haven't experienced it. When you beat a sickness naturally, there's an amazing natural high after that in your body, where you feel sharper and stronger than ever. Because your body just adapted to something, and now your immune system is getting smarter, it's more versatile, it learns something from beating that, okay? And it's more prepared for whatever's coming next. That's the way it works. You could call it training for your soldiers. What good are soldiers? Well, what good are soldiers that aren't even there? And the better your soldiers are, what's that going to come from? Training, practice, fighting, winning, okay? That's the truth. Don't be a defenseless organism, please. If you hear what I'm saying, if you hear the wisdom in this, all right? There will be a few links below to get your research started. And please, for the sake of you and your loved ones, rebuild your immune system. Because depending on something outside of yourself that's man-made to save you every time a sniffle comes through, guys, that's a really bad place to be.